What is up, people? What is up, people? Sorry about the music being too loud on TikTok. Um, Welcome to our show. Welcome to our live stream show. Today we have a great show for you where we're going to be covering Fairfax County February 2023 numbers. We also have two pieces of content we're going to talk about from the buyer side, which is question number 44. Do you need to hire a real estate attorney? And then question number 12, should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list? So that's our seller piece of content there. So if you have any questions for us, post those questions down below in the comment section. I'll be sure to answer those questions in between our different segments. If you don't mind, post down below where you're watching us from, where you're located. If you're local, let us know what county you're in. If you're not local, just let us know where you're watching from. We always want to know. Now, before we start, there is a link in the description to the Perfect Home Questionnaire. Fill out that form, and we will schedule a time to meet online via Zoom to answer any and all of your questions, no matter where you are in the real estate journey, whether you're buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate. Let us know, and we'll schedule a time to meet online via Zoom to answer any and all of your questions. All right, so remember, post your questions down below in the comment section, and we will answer those questions in between the different segments, okay? All right, let's clear out the comments right now before we start our looking at the numbers for February in Fairfax County. Somebody says, turn down the music, bro. You got it. Thanks for that. Any possible cash flow over there? Cash flow in Northern Virginia is tough unless you put a large down payment down. So if you put a sizable down payment, then you can cash flow. A lot of people who are investing in properties in Northern Virginia are really making more of an equity play. So an equity buy down play where you invest in this market knowing that you'll be able to get good enough rental rates, and you'll have a larger mortgage, and 30 years from now that mortgage will be paid off. And it's hard to come across $700 to $1 million properties in other markets where you can actually find renters on a consistent basis. So cash flow isn't the same in Northern Virginia. All right, so another question before we begin: how's the Amazon HQ2 halt slow down things? Any impact? Well, since Amazon HQ2 is really, they've slowed down the development of their the ice cream cone type of structure. They already have one of their other buildings that is already built, and I believe the grand opening is going to be in March. I haven't seen any news about it, but that building there already holds several 100,000 square feet of commercial space for their employees. So I don't think that this is going to be too much of a big deal. They've already started some of the site development where they're going to put, I believe it's 3 other towers. So it's the cone shaped, I think it's called the Helix. And then they have 3 other towers that they're going to put on a piece of property across from the Pentagon. Will this slow things down? I don't think so. I mean, I think that we probably are going to be looking at maybe a 5 to 7 year horizon for Amazon to build out the Helix and the rest of the development. But Amazon HQ2's presence has already been felt. If you ride down Crystal City, you'll see that there is so much development. There's so much development right now in the Crystal City National Landing area. You already have Virginia Tech has already broken ground. They already have most of the shell of their structure built out. There's the new metro station in Potomac Yard. So Potomac Yard already has this metro station, and yeah, I think that Amazon is halting their development isn't going to be that big of an issue. Yes, they paused the second phase. That's correct. I'm in Seattle, Bellevue, so I know Amazon impact. Oh, excellent. Yeah. So I think So one of the things that I think a lot of people misunderstood about Amazon's presence in Northern Virginia is that Northern Virginia is already a high cost of living area, and we already have a large impact on our employment base by the government, right? So government jobs, government contractors, people who work for the military, Fortune 500 companies who service the government, those individuals already live here, and their incomes are already pretty high as well. So Amazon kind of added fuel to an already blazing fire. So it's not going to be the same impact that you would see in maybe a market where there isn't as much development, or there isn't a large economy already. All right, so keep those questions coming. We'll answer those questions in between our different segments. So let's jump into Fairfax County February 2023 market update. So we're going to go over a couple categories for you. First, we're going to start off with the over asking price, what people paid over asking. Then we're going to talk about the number of homes sold, average sales price, average days on market. Then we'll wrap up with what buyers should know about this information, how they should use this information, and then also finish up with the sellers. All right. So we're starting with Fairfax County. Yesterday we started with Northern Virginia. Our second presentation is Fairfax County. The reason why we're doing Fairfax County is because 40% of all transactions in in Northern Virginia, were sold or happened in Fairfax County. So it is the highest percentage of sales in the region. 40% of all transactions in Fairfax County in February were sold over the asking price. So this is 2 out of 5 transactions. So if you're going to be shopping for homes, you should know that it's very likely, if a property is pretty hot, it's going to be sold over asking price. And this is 284 transactions total. So this graph right here that I'm showing you is, I guess, a sign that show you that the we're not in the same market that we were in last year, where properties were selling, almost 60% of all transactions were selling over the asking price in February 2022. But you'll notice 40%, 60%, that is, while it is a 20-point difference, we're still hovering at that 50% range, which means that you will be in a competitive market no matter where you are. Now, when you're thinking about how much over the asking price people are paying, on average, they're paying $26,000, $26,833 on average over the asking price. The way you use this number is when you know that there's going to be a competitive market or a competitive offer situation, you want to kind of do an analysis of what other buyers in the market in the area that you're choosing have paid for properties. Once you have that number, then you want to make your offer on a property. You cannot just make an offer on a property just by offering the list price. The list price in a seller's market is where you begin the negotiation. In a buyer's market, the list price is where you end the negotiation. So that's something to consider. Now, the number of units sold in February 2023, it was 708 units sold. This is down 27% from February of last year. The way these numbers break down, single family homes represented 46% of all transactions in Fairfax County, and then condos came in at 26%, and then townhouses at 28%. When we're looking at the prices breakdown by when we look at the number of units sold broken down by price ranges, you'll see that most properties sold are happen in this $500,000 to $600,000 price range, and then the next highest ranking is going to be the 6 to 7, and then 7 to 800,000. So this kind of shows us that Fairfax County is still trending upward as far as the price ranges. We don't really have that much inventory in this below $500,000 price range. And this is going to be some of the more competitive markets for most home buyers. Top zip codes. So Reston has 2 of the top 5 zip codes in February. So Reston had 20190, had 31 transactions. Fairfax had a zip code of 22030 that was tied with Reston's, the second zip code that's classified to Reston, which is 20191. And then Herndon kind of wraps out the bottom of this list with 29 to 28 transactions. So Herndon, if you notice, Herndon, Reston are really right next door. They're neighbors. So a lion's share of most people who are moving to the Fairfax County area are moving to the northern part of the Fairfax County region. Now, as far as the average sales price, you'll notice there's not really much change. 717 in February 2022, 715 in February 2023. We're going to talk a little bit more about the average sales price and how this information is going to affect buyers move forward. As far as the property types, single family homes sold for $979,000 on average, 601 for townhouses, and 371 for condos. I was joking with the missus before when I got on, that if you combine the townhouse price with the condo price, you almost get to a single family home. So you can either buy 2 properties or 1 in Fairfax County. Now, the highest price over asking price was paid for a property in Falls Church. This property sold for $1.57 million. The buyer paid $172,000 over the asking price. Now, this is a gorgeous home inside. And it's a little bit smaller than I anticipated, to be honest with you. But yeah, somebody paid $172,000 over the asking price. When you're looking at the numbers, let's go back to this number. Okay, so on average, people paid $26,000 on over the asking price when there was a multiple offer scenario. Now, the way you want to use this information is you can't just make a blanket offer of $26,000 over the asking price and think you're going to win. In Falls Church, people are paying much more money than that over the asking price because it's a more competitive market. So you need to know exactly where you are and what other buyers in your market are doing. Now, when it comes to average days on market have increased by 10 days from last year. Last year, we're at 22 days. This year, we're at 32 days on market. Despite the average days on market increasing, we're still not seeing any prices changing. Average sales price is going up. Another thing you want to consider is that we're still in a seller's market, right? So buyers, what should buyers know? That even though supply is dipping, interest rates have caused less homes to be on the market. But even though supply is decreasing, prices are still increasing. So you should expect to be in a very competitive situation this spring, and also expect to pay over asking price for top tier properties. Make sure you get pre-approved, and please go see properties as soon as they hit the market. In Northern Virginia, our properties come on the market on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Make sure you go see those properties before the open houses, because most likely offers have already started to flood in on top tier properties. Now, what does this information mean for sellers? Sellers, prepare for a quicker than normal sale. Make sure you declutter, depersonalize, and light staging. You still need to make sure you prepare for the process of selling. And then for owner-occupied properties, make sure you put the rent back in the agent's remarks section. So we put a couple properties on the contract for our YouTube clients over the past couple of weeks, and I think none of them, all of them were pre-owner occupied, but none of them actually asked for a rent back until we got into the negotiation process. This is not the best way to handle your buyers, potential buyers. If you know you're going to need a rent back, ask for it. Even if you don't know you're going to need a rent back, ask for it. See if you can get some additional time inside of the property. Another thing too, we're telling our seller clients is to just vacate the property for the first weekend that you're on the month. So as soon as you hit the market, so Wednesday or Thursday, maybe go get yourself a hotel room in the city, enjoy yourself for that first weekend, so that you could just not have to deal with the fact that your house is going to be constantly shown throughout the weekend. And then lastly, make sure your listing agent, is talking to the buyer's agent lender before you accept any offers. Lenders be using the most wonkiest pre-approval letters, pre-qualification letters that have no substance to them. You do not want to find yourself being under contract with somebody who is not prepared to close on the transaction. So that was it. So that was February 2023's numbers for Fairfax County. The next segment we're going to do is 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask. Question number 44, do you need to hire a real estate attorney? Before we get into that segment, we're going to answer a couple of your questions, and I'm going to sip on Sip of my water. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, make sure you check out the link to the Perfect Home Questionnaire if you are ready to start your real estate journey, whether that's buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate. Click on the link in the description to fill out the Perfect Home Questionnaire. Schedule time to meet with me online via Zoom, where I'll answer any and all of your questions about real estate. All right, let's get into some of these questions. Okay, we don't have any on that side, but we have a few on on TikTok. All right. So there are a lot of high cost of living tech comparables on West Coast. Why Northern Virginia over like Austin, Seattle, Bay Area? Okay, so why would you choose to live in Northern Virginia over Austin, Seattle, or the Bay Area? For starters, our market, in addition to being having a tech concentration, the government insulates us from just the normal wears and tears, the normal ebbs and flows of the market. So you'll notice that a lot of other markets are going through are hesitant about layoffs. We don't really have the same fears or concerns because the government isn't going to be quote unquote downsizing or losing its funding per se. So that is one of the benefits of the Northern Virginia market over some of these other high cost of living markets. You have that extra layer of insulation. I'll also add that our overall market is a little bit larger than some of these other areas because we have Northern Virginia, we have Washington, D.C., and then we have some parts of Maryland to choose from. So you have a little bit more variety, whereas I find some of the other markets, you really have to be very selective about where you're going to live. And our clients, our residents, we don't really have that same fear or concern. So that's why Northern Virginia over Austin, Seattle, or the Bay Area. But thanks for that question. Okay, so somebody says, I bought in December 2021 and I paid $5,000. I think $5,000 over asking, and my interest rate is 3.79%. I just got in time. Okay, yeah, pay $5,000 over asking price. Yes, you did just get in time. Yes, that interest rate. We're going to see a lot of people start to make decisions about life decisions just over the interest rate alone, which I think is a little short-sighted. So if you're thinking about taking a job in another market or staying local, and you have this lower interest rate, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to move because I have such a low interest rate. I think we're going to need to start to think about I think we're going to see a lot more people jump into the landlord space because of the low interest rates, which I think is a smart move anyway. We were trying to move a lot of our clients who purchased in 2015, 16, 17. We were trying to actually get them to buy additional properties, so to keep their current homes and just buy a slightly larger home because of the favorable interest rates. But some of them didn't listen, and they missed out on a huge equity play at that time. So thanks for sharing. All right, so we have another question. If I want to rent my house out, what paperwork do I have to fill out? Well, there's really just a standard lease that you would fill out with you and the tenant. So you can find the lease online. If you go through a real estate agent, which I recommend because I'm a real estate agent, so I do have a biased perspective on that. A real estate agent will provide you with all the documents that you would need to rent out your property. Make sure if you do decide to rent out your property that you do a great job of vetting the person who's going to have essentially control of your asset. So make sure you don't skip out on that. Do not trust people just because you like the way they sound on the phone, or you like their presentation. No, you got to check them out, check their credit, check their work history, right? Make sure that they could actually qualify for the property. If you get any kind of red flags, or if you have any kind of hesitation, when you are a private landlord, there is more flexibility that you have. But on the professional side, we just use a list of a criteria that is that's developed by the landlord to kind of rule out different clients, so our prospective tenants. So yeah, so I think that we're going to see a lot more landlords going up for the next 5 years. We're going to see a lot more people transition just into landlording. because of the fact that low interest rates just doesn't make sense to get rid of your property, right? If you have a $500,000 property you bought in 2019 and your mortgage is only $2,500, but now you can get $3,000 a month for it, why would you sell that property? I don't know, but some people will, because some people are really against becoming a landlord. All right. So we're gonna go to our next segment. Keep those questions coming. Oh, you know what? Let's see. All right. So keep those questions coming. Let me get set up. So question number 44 from 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask is, do you need to hire a real estate attorney? All right. So we don't have any more questions on that side. We cleared up all the questions over there. Perfect. We're looking good. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Crystal, the missus, she couldn't join me today. She wasn't feeling well. So it's just me today. All right, let's get into it. So question number 44, do you need to hire a real estate attorney? So this section here was actually quite eye-opening for me, because I've been in real estate. I've been selling real estate for almost 15 years now. Wait, is it 15? No, next month it'll be 15 years. Next month it will be my 15-year anniversary. And I've never had anybody ask me about hiring a real estate attorney, right? So this was quite an eye-opening segment of the book for me, because I learned something as I was preparing this content for you all. So let's kind of go through it. So in a traditional transaction, you usually just have an agent and a title attorney. So an agent, myself, would be your representative, and then once you go into contract, that information, your contract, will be sent to the title attorney, and then that person has a whole list of activities that we're going to kind of get into towards the end. Well, this book kind of recommends that you think about, or at least you know about, a real estate attorney and what that person does. Now, the reason why I drew these stick figures here is because I don't want you to think that the real estate attorney is a replacement for the title attorney. We're going to get into what are the differences between these two individuals, but this is essentially another person added to the transaction that you should know about. So now, with the real estate attorney, this person is licensed to practice real estate law. They're not a real estate agent, though. So this isn't a person that will replace anybody in the process. You're just going to add this person to the process, right? So this person advises parties involved in the real estate transaction. So that means that either the buyer or the seller could hire this person. So this isn't exclusive to any one part of the process. And this person shouldn't be confused with the title attorney, title agent, or settlement agent, right? So now, what's the difference? A title attorney is really somebody that's a part of the normal part of the transaction. A title attorney is the person that makes sure that all of the documents are prepared. They make sure they communicate between the lender and the buyer, right? Because usually there's a transfer of money from the lender to the seller, and they're like the intermediary, right? So they're the person in the middle. They also make sure that you have title or legal title to the property. So they make sure that the seller can sell the property, and they make sure that the buyer is the right person to buy the property. So the same person that's on the contract should be the person that's going to be transferred the property. They also secure the money that is also exchanged in the process. So you'll notice that, if we have $500,000, $700,000, $1 million properties, that's a lot of cash to be moving around. The title company manages all those documents, or all that transferring of funds, right? And then lastly, they also file and record the title with the county, and also the deed, right? Title, deed, those two different things. We may talk about that in the future. Now, the one thing you should know, though, is that the title attorney will not provide you with legal advice. I have been in situations where there's a closing, there's like some questions that come up about the documents, and the title attorney will kind of infer or give off this presence of being a an attorney for my client, right? So either the buyer or the seller, and that's just not the case. This person is a representative for the contract for the property, which we'll get into a little bit further. The one thing you should know is that the title attorney is not there for you. They're not there for you. They're there for the house. All right. Now, the real estate attorney, this is a person that you hire to represent you. Unlike a real estate agent, a real estate agent has a vested interest in you selling or completing the transaction, right? So a real estate agent could never have an unbiased opinion. Yes, real estate agents have the perspective of having a fiduciary duty, but that fiduciary duty, which means that we're supposed to put your interest above our interest, still comes into question when you consider the fact that I don't get paid, or a real estate agent doesn't get paid until the transaction is concludes. But a title attorney, I mean, a real estate attorney, this is somebody you pay. You've already paid them to actually perform a service for you. So they have no vested interest in seeing the property close. So this is really a person who doesn't have a biased opinion. This is also the only person in the transaction who could provide you with legal counsel. They can give you a legal opinion. They could actually tell you A plus B equals C. This will happen if you do this, or could happen. Your real estate agent can't do this. The title attorney can't do this. Only the real estate attorney. The real estate attorney could also write a contract, which is different from an agent, myself, completing or filling out standard forms. With the real estate agent, our forms are actually created by attorneys that work for the board, that work for the state, and then real estate agents are trained to fill out those forms. Whereas a real estate attorney, they could actually draw up a contract. You see this a lot more in commercial real estate, because commercial real estate transactions have a lot more variety in them than residential contracts, right? And so lastly, a real estate attorney is, well, not lastly, in addition to this, they can also track all the little details throughout the transaction, but this is no different than a real estate agent. Real estate agents provide you a similar service. Now, I mentioned this earlier, a real estate attorney represents you. The title attorney represents the property. This can be confusing because you want the property, so you may think that the title attorney is representing you. That's not true. That's not true. There is a clear chain of ownership that the title attorney is protecting. The title attorney is there to ensure that the owner successfully, or the current seller successfully transfers the property to the new buyer, right? And then those records are being maintained, right? So the title attorney is there to kind of protect the sanctity of the home ownership or ownership interest, right? So I hope I'm explaining this correctly. Whereas a real estate attorney, this is a person that is here to protect you, the individual. All right. So is it worth it? Is the cost worth it? Now, I already told you, I've been selling real estate for 15 years. There hasn't really become a point in a transaction where an attorney, a real estate attorney, was really needed, because most residential transactions are very simple. They're very common. And in America, I think there's like 5 million transactions a year. So you can see how everybody wouldn't have hired a real estate attorney, right? But this book brings up a good point, which is, if you're buying something that's several $100,000, does it make sense to just get like an attorney just to review some things for you? I don't know. And again, I have a biased opinion towards this, because as a real estate agent, removing a lot of friction from the table causes my clients to actually buy properties quicker, right? So adding another person to the transaction from a real estate agent perspective will quote unquote complicate the process. And again, real estate agents have a biased opinion. So since a real estate agent has a biased opinion, they're, in addition to serving you, they're also focused on making a commission. So you see how this is a little challenging. right? Residential contracts are pretty simple. It's a pretty simple process. Commercial transactions, there's a lot more on the line. So you'll see why those instances they usually use real estate attorneys, right? Now, when can they come in handy? So there's a couple opportunities for real estate attorneys to really uh, earn their income or earn their wages, right? If you don't believe that this transaction is going to be straightforward, then you probably want to have an attorney come into the situation, right? You probably want to consult with an attorney. Also, if you've been burned in the past, right? So maybe you have a negative experience, you probably want to bring in a real estate attorney. Maybe there's a potential legal dispute, bring in a real estate attorney. Now, with the legal dispute side, that's uncommon, and also you really won't know if you'll need an attorney until the legal dispute happens, right? So this is another case where you want to make sure you're working with a real estate agent who has access to a large network, and then they could help you solve your problem through their community of people, right? So that's it. So that's question number 44. Do you need to hire a real estate attorney? So our next segment is going to be question number 12. So it's from 100 questions every home seller should ask. And question number 12 is, should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list? So before we go into that section, we're going to clear out any questions that we may have. So post any questions that you want me to cover right now, and I will. Also, let me know where you're watching us from, where you're watching the show from. Let me know in the comment section. And while we're getting ready to answer your questions, I want to let you know there is a link in the description to the Perfect Home Questionnaire. Fill out that form, and we'll schedule time to meet online via Zoom to answer any and all of your real estate questions. Whether you're buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate, click that link, and we'll schedule time to meet online. All right, let me get a little sip of water. So what y'all think about that? Question number 44. Do you need to hire a real estate attorney? Have you ever hired a real estate attorney? Have you ever had a deal that needed a real estate attorney? 15 years of doing this, not once. What's really strange is that I used to do short sales too, like back in 2009 through 2012, 13, we were doing short sales. Never once thought about using a real estate attorney. All right, let's answer some questions here. All right, all right, we did that. If I did FSBO, how would that work? If I'm buying, who's hiring the title attorney? Me? Yeah. So if you're doing FSBO, or if you're buying a property, you would hire the title attorney. I mean, not the title attorney, you would hire the real estate attorney. A title attorney is going to be a part of every transaction in Northern Virginia. Okay, so you're not going to be able to get out of using a title attorney in Northern Virginia. But for a real estate attorney, that is someone you would hire directly. Hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't answer your question, just add some more stuff and we can clarify. I used to live in Sterling, Virginia. Okay, excellent. What'd you think about Sterling, Virginia? How did you like it? How did you like living in Sterling? Let us know. Yeah, post any comments, any questions that you may have in the comment section, and we'll get to that while we prepare for our next topic. 100 questions every seller should ask. Question number 12. Should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list it? All right, so some more clarity. Wait, I missed you answer my question because my phone rang. Okay. All right, so this person had a question about, if I did FSBO, how would that work? If I'm buying, who's hiring the title attorney? Me. Yes, so remember, title attorneys are going to be a part of every transaction. This is the person who makes sure that the money from the buyer gets to the seller and that the title or the ownership interest is recorded properly. So that person is going to be a part of every transaction. Now, a real estate attorney will be hired directly by the individual who wants the representation. So if it's a buyer who wants to review a contract or to consult them about a contract, then the buyer will hire them. If it's a seller who maybe wants to retain some ownership interest or wants to structure a contract or structure a deal in a unique way, then the seller or the homeowner would hire that real estate attorney. All right. All right. All right. All right. So we answered that question. Post any other questions that you may have for us. So we have one more segment left in today's live stream, and then we will answer questions on the back end and stay on as long as you need me to. I'm excited about ending this live stream because my wife made some Creole cream cheese cheesecake from scratch. Yes, I have myself a great wife. She cooks from scratch. Not to say that her value is placed in her cooking ability, but I will say some of her value has increased because she cooks so well. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, thank you. How does FHA check primary residence? How does FHA check primary residence? I don't think they check your primary residence. I think that it's on like a honor code, and then if you get reported or if you go under investigation, they'll find you. So I don't think that they're checking all of these properties that are going under contract. They just hope that you are being honest and forthright. If you're not being honest and forthright, then they will. If they find out, they'll find you. And the government has what it takes to take what you have. All right. All right. So any other questions? We'll just wait a couple more seconds here before we go into question number 12. Should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list it? All right. So we don't have any questions on YouTube. And we don't have any. I think we're wrapped up. All right. So let's get into our next part of the presentation, which is question number 12. All right. When we're talking about environmental toxins, should you have your home tested? This is on the seller side. So when the seller is about to put the house on the market, we're talking about preventative things that you can do to ensure that your contract does not stall. The buyer who puts your home on the contract, we don't want that person to cancel the deal. So we're trying to get ahead of things with this conversation. And you may be wondering to yourself, you know what, Abraham, I've been living in my property all this time. Why should I get my house tested for this if it hasn't caused me any harm? Well, it's very likely that you don't know if you've been in harm's way. You just don't know. You just don't know. So the toxins that we're going to talk about in today's session are radon and lead-based paint. These are the two that are most popular that we see. Now, there is a third toxin that you should be concerned about, which is asbestos. But we're not going to really talk about that today. Okay. Now, both of these items can be tested before you list the property. Let's talk about what radon gas is. So radon gas is an odorless, colorless gas. It's naturally occurring. It seeps through your foundation and the cracks in your home, right? So this is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and over a quarter of homes tested in Virginia exceed EPA's recommendation for radon gas exposure. So this is a big deal. This is a serious issue. Now, when you're doing when the radon testing is being conducted, they have some guidelines. We're not going to go over the guidelines because they also could change. And this is just a test that's offered by most home inspection agencies, right? So once you sign up to have your home inspected, you can also opt to have this additional test done, and that'll be on the home inspector side. Now, you can also test your property yourself. There are some home test kits that are available at local home improvement stores, and you can buy some on Amazon. Right before I actually jumped on this live stream, I checked on Amazon, and you can get them from anywhere from $15 to $99, right? Now, if you're going to conduct the test yourself, there are going to be some instructions, but some of the common things to know is that you need to keep all your vents, windows, doors closed during the testing, because you're trying to test the air inside of your property, and if you just let that air out, it's going to be a poor test or poor reading, right? Now, Radon testing from the south side, why you should do this before you list your home. Radon testing is really just a part of a natural process of due diligence, right? So home inspections, radon inspections, home inspections, radon inspections, they sound like two different things, but because they're usually paired together, most buyers get them. Now, if you're in a condo, if you're in a high-rise condo or mid-rise condo and you're off the ground floor level, you're not getting a radon inspection, typically, right? Now, for ground floor condos, I need to be specific about this. Ground floor level condos should have radon inspections done on them, right? And so right now there are these condos called 2 over 2, where you have 2 floors, 2 stories that are dedicated to a the first condo, and then on top of that condo there are 2 more floors or potentially a rooftop terrace, and that's going to be a second unit. So it's 2 units, 2 over 2. Ground floor unit condos, that first level that you're in usually has a garage in the back, and then you have like some living space in the front. That living space usually sits on the on earth, right? That space could be exposed to radon. We had a client last year who bought a 2 over 2 unit, and they were buying the ground level unit, gorgeous unit, great window. They had these floor to ceilings windows in Reston, and one of the options was to get the radon inspection. And so I explained to the client that since we're on the ground level, the foundation sits on the ground, you should get this done. Kid you not, that property tested high. It had high levels of radon, and we had to go through the condo association to get the radon mitigated. So you want to make sure, just because you're in a condo doesn't mean that you're not going to be exposed to radon. And like like we already talked about, radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. I don't think your lungs, I don't think you should abuse your lungs by living in a property that has high level of radons. Okay, so remediate that stuff. All right, so what else are we saying? Okay, so if a home, so let's say for instance you go into a home, the home tests for high levels of radon. What happens next? Well, you can just remediate it, or sometimes buyers will just walk away. On the sales side, you should just remediate it, and the remediation costs anywhere from $900 to $1,300. It's a very quick process. There's several companies in Northern Virginia that offer this service. If you don't mediate this issue, then you will need to disclose to the buyer that you know about the high levels of radons. This is another reason why a lot of sellers don't like to do these inspections before they come on the market, because they don't want to know. They want to kind of use ignorance as a tool for selling properties. This is a strategy some people use. Anyway, all right. So next toxin that you want to think about is lead-based paint. Lead is found, the way it's usually transmitted, or the way it usually shows up in residential properties, is through paint. Okay, so usually it shows up in paint. Now, this has been stopped. This practice has been stopped since 1978. So you'll notice that on most properties that have been built before 1978, there is a lead-based paint disclosure that just comes with every property that's listed. Right now, what are the problems with lead-based paint? Or lead poisoning is that it can cause mental and physical issues, and the problem comes is when it is either consumed or inhaled. Right now, we're going to kind of talk about the consumed or inhaled part, but while I'm on this part, I just want to let you know that a lot of parents who buy older homes, they actually have when they're buying an older home, they will sometimes have the window seals and the door jambs repainted, or at least stripped of all lead-based paint, because those are the areas where children, babies specifically, will put their mouths on these parts of the house. And pets, sometimes your dogs are notorious for chewing on door jambs and on chewing on those window seals that kind of stick out, right? So you have the window seal, and then you have the window, and then you have this little seal that kind of sticks out, maybe like a half a centimeter, 2 centimeters or so, right? Sometimes you'll get them gnawing on that, and you don't want them consuming any lead-based paint, right? So now, what are the signs of lead-based paint? There is this concept called alligatoring, right? Which is this picture right here at the bottom here. You can't see this on TikTok, but TikTok, we're live on YouTube if you want to see the photos. And so you'll see like this little peeling paint sort of thing. There's something called chalking, where you rub like a dark piece of cloth across the surface, and then it shows up with some type of white residue. And then if you see multiple layers of paint, then that property most likely has lead-based paint, because that is the normal remedy, right? Is just to either cover the lead-based paint with more paint, or to remove it altogether. So you'll notice a lot of older homes have just thick layers of paint on them. Okay, so let's see. All right, lead-based paint. All right, so we already talked about how dangerous it is to children. Well, it's believed to be more dangerous for children, and really, I think it's tied to the fact that children are more likely to put things into their mouths without any judgment. Right? That's a we have kids. They're 12 and 14, and there's a reason why you have to watch your kids until they're 18. All right, so let's see. Now, the testing kits cost anywhere from $300 for a small area to several $100s, depends on the size and the range of the testing, right? So testing is tied to the sample size, not necessarily the result. So that was it. So we talked about radon and we talked about lead-based paint. And that was question number 12. Should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list? In my opinion, I think it makes sense to have your home tested so that you can get ahead of the buyer. Well, you should have your home tested for radon, not for lead-based paint. I'm not recommending the lead-based paint one, but I am recommending the radon testing. If you're listing your property, you haven't had a radon testing done, you should get it done, especially if you have any part of your property that sits on the ground level. Another reason why you should have radon testing done is if you go through your neighborhood and you see other radon mediation systems. So they kind of look like spacecraft on the side of a house, right? So they're probably like I would say like like 6 inches tall, maybe like a foot wide, right? And it kind of looks like a little flying saucers on the side of a house. That's a sign that there's a radon mitigation system, which means that your area, the area you live in, is probably has high concentrations of radon. I would get it done so that you don't have a buyer walking away for something that you could have mediated for $1,300. Don't lose a $600,000 sale over a $1,300 fix or a repair. Another thing too, for my townhouse buyers, right? So we have townhouse buyers. So we live in Kingstowne. Kingstowne has a lot of townhouses to sell that we've sold, and we were buying in the Island Creek. So we had a client buying a property in the Island Creek about 2 years ago, right? And so we were walking them through the process of choosing home inspections and whether or not they should do a radon inspection. Well, this buyer said, you know what, Abraham, I don't want to do a radon inspection. And I was like, hey, sir, don't get me wrong. I think that you're a brilliant person at work, but I think that you probably just want to just spend the $150 or so to get the radon inspection, so you have the peace of mind of knowing that you don't have radon, because this person also had young children in the house, and I think they had somebody that was going to be living in the basement level of this particular townhouse. So we got the radon inspection done, and kid you not, the radon levels were through the roof. They were through the roof in a townhouse. So that means that the basement level is going to have higher concentrations of it, and then it's going to dissipate as as you move up in the property, right? So people on the highest levels will have less exposure. People on the lower level will have the most exposure. And they were so pleased to learn that this place that they were planning on building out for their daughter's play area, and also they're gonna have a loved one living in that space. They were so pleased to learn that they now have this radon mediation system, and they don't have to worry about potential lung cancer for their loved one. So if you're buying a townhouse, get a radon inspection. If you're buying a condo that sits on the ground level, or it's one of those lower level 2/2 units, get yourself a radon mediation system, right? Get yourself a radon inspection. So that's it. If you purchased a house recently in Northern Virginia, did you get a radon inspection? What were the results? If you didn't get your radon inspection, so this is another thing too, while we're talking, for my new construction people, right? So we represent a lot of new construction people, specifically through our YouTube channel. A lot of people are buying new construction through us, finding us through our YouTube channel. When our clients move into a property, a new construction property, the builder will not let you do a radon inspection. The reason why is because the criteria to perform a radon inspection is to have all the windows closed, have all the doors closed, have none of the don't have the garage door open for long periods of time. Because of that restraint, builders can't agree to that because they have all of these contractors and subcontractors going in and out of the property, right? So when you're buying new construction, you have to make sure you remember to do a radon inspection once you move into the property. Once you take possession of the property, one of the things you should do within your first 3 months of living in your property is to perform a radon inspection on that home. We send out reminders to our new construction buyers when they take possession. Hey, look, get your radon test done. Get your radon test done, right? Some of our clients are like, Abraham, it's not that serious. Lung cancer is serious. Lung cancer is serious, okay? And I don't want that on my conscience to learn that one of my clients could have had $100 test done and a $1,300 remediation system put in and avoided some type of health consequences in the future. I like to sleep. I like to sleep at night really comfortably, right? I want to snore in peace, and I can't snore in peace if you didn't get your radon inspection done after you purchase a new construction property. Okay. All right. That's my rant for this segment. So that was question number 12 from 100 questions every seller should ask, which is, should I have my home tested for environmental toxins before I list? Question number 44 was, do you need to hire a real estate attorney? So that's from our 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask. And then earlier in this segment, we looked at the numbers for Fairfax County, February 2023 numbers. We talked about the units selling over asking price, average days on market, average sales price. So if you want to check out the rebroadcast of this show, that will happen on our YouTube channel, Where to Live in Northern Virginia. Check it out. That's where it's going to live. All right, let's go to our questions now. So post any questions that you may have. Also, let us know where you're watching us from. Let me know where you're watching the show from. I'd love to know where you're located. All right. Let's see. So I used to live. Okay. Wait, I missed that. Okay. Thank you. Should a buyer? Okay. So should a buyer have their home tested? I believe this person is asking about radon testing. Yes, you should have your home tested for radon. Radon testing is also a good way to knock off a few bucks from closing costs. I guess it depends. So I guess what this person is recommending is that you get a home tested for radon. The tests come back negative, or the test results exceed what the EPA recommends. And this person is saying that you get some closing cost assistance from the seller to remedy these systems. Okay, I disagree with this strategy. Because if you get the money, right? So let's say, for instance, you go through the process, you find something negative about the property, and then the seller says, I'm going to give you the money for it. That's fine. If we're talking about painting some walls, you could deal with painted walls. For radon remediation, you kind of want to get that done as soon as possible, because I don't want any exposure. I don't want any exposure to anything negative that could negatively impact my health. So having the seller perform these activities, in my opinion, is the best strategy. So you could move into your property and you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. I don't like worrying about anything. So while, yes, you could have a little bit more money on your side, but now you have to deal with this problem, and it's a problem that's not going to go away. All right. How's the market in Warrenton, Virginia? I don't even know where Warrenton is. I'm in Northern Virginia. So Northern Virginia for us is Alexandria City, Arlington County, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Prince William County, and Stafford. That's what we consider as Northern Virginia. I know Warrenton is just on the other side, but gas prices are high these days. I'm not going out to Warrenton. But I heard that Warrenton is a lovely place to live. I know people who live out there, but we don't go that far. All right. So somebody says my radon test was just below the concerning limit. Excellent. So what did you do? Did you install a system despite the fact that it was just under the bar? We had one radon inspection that came back, result that came back at like 3.3 3.8 or something like that, and the recommended level was like 4.4 something. I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I'm saying? Is 3.8% of poison enough for me? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. All right. Post any questions that you may have about buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate. We're in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. We're to the west of Washington, D.C. I live in Kingstowne, which is right at the end of the blue line. And I've been selling real estate almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years this April. Is that crazy? That's wild. All right. So, question: if my mortgage is $2,500 a month, so $2,500 a month, and I have it rented for $2,700, how much of this debt goes towards my debt to income ratio? Great question. Great question. You kind of have to talk to a lender about this, because I believe that no matter how much of your mortgage is actually covered by the rent, they'll still use 25% of your mortgage against your debt to income ratio. But you need to confirm that with a lender. Okay, that's just what somebody told me, and I believe it's true. But I would get that checked. I would get the right answer to that. Too bad we don't have one of our lenders online right now, because somebody could just chime in with a quick answer. 25%. Interesting. Yes. 25% of your mortgage will be counted, even if you get that, even if you get a tenant in your property that covers all of your rent. And you know what? You know why I think the reason why I think it's like that is, a lender doesn't want you gaming the system by just showing them a lease that shows your mortgage being covered, and then you just going off and buying another property. So by saying that 25% of your income, 25% of the mortgage is still attached to your debt to income ratio, it shows that you still have some liability out there, and you're just not living free and clear, right? So that's what I think the reasoning behind this is. Okay, I've heard something from Meet Kevin. Oh, the YouTuber. Excellent. Something similar. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. Meet Kevin has some good stuff. Thanks for the insight. My pleasure. Keep those questions coming. I know other people have questions. I'll let you know this. After this is over, I'm going to have myself a piece of Creole cream cheesecake my wife made from scratch. She had to make the Creole cream cheese. It was a process of using no fat milk and some type of vegetable rennet. You had to let it sit for 24 hours to create your own Creole cream cheese. So we have some cheesecake that we're about to eat as a family. I haven't decided how much of the cheesecake I'm going to share with my children, but I'm pretty sure they're going to guilt me into sharing more than I anticipated. All right. So if we don't have any more questions, what did y'all think about today's show? Did you like today's show? Did you like the topic? This is a little bit different. You know, for the past couple shows, we've been kind of going at it with my wife and myself, my co-host. Question: how does student loans impact DTI? Why can't I use the amount I pay if it's lower than 1%? Question: how does student loans impact my DTI? Again, this is a professional specific question, and I'm a real estate agent. I'm sorry. I don't want to say something that's probably incorrect. I know enough to be dangerous. Okay? I know enough to be dangerous. So if there are any lenders watching right now, if you want to chime in, the question is, how does student loans impact debt to income ratios? Why can't I use the amount if I pay? Why can't I use the amount I pay if it's lower than 1%? The missus, my wife said, "You missed me." Yes, I did miss your presence. Your presence was missed. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. All right, all right. So this is the last call. Last call for questions. Last call for questions. Post your questions right now. Also, let me know where you're watching us from. Also, give me a thumbs up if you like today's show. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you like today's show. Show me some positive feedback. So we're almost halfway through our 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask. We're at question number 44. It's crazy. We started this several weeks ago. Homes with HOAs over HOAs. So are you asking whether homes with HOA? Okay, homes without HOAs over homes with HOAs. So many transactions in Northern Virginia, so many houses in Northern Virginia are inside of HOAs that I don't think it's wise to limit yourself based on the idea that maybe you could put some pink flamingos in your front yard. There's too many homes that are inside of HOAs that, and also our inventory is so low. I wouldn't do it. So we live in Kingstowne, which is one of the second largest. It's the second largest planned community in Northern Virginia with 5,500 homes, and it's a very large HOA. We like our HOA. I mean, I like our HOA. I know my wife likes the HOA as well. And HOAs, when you're in a large HOA, you get the swimming pools, fitness centers, walking trails, volleyball courts, tennis courts. I like this. This is like a country club almost, a cheap country club. All right, post any questions, more questions. Since we got that last question, we'll stay on one more song. So last call for questions before I go have myself some Creole cream cheese cake. Creole cream cheesecake. No, wait, Creole cream cheesecake. Yes. It's a recipe. The missus made the recipe from Commander's Palace cookbook. I used to work at Commander's Palace as a back waiter many moons ago. Commander's Palace is one of the premier restaurants in New Orleans. If you go to New Orleans, make sure you get yourself some reservations at Commander's Palace. It's a great restaurant. Also, if you're gonna go to Commander's Palace, make sure you tell them you want to sit in the garden room. It's an upstairs dining room, and try to sit as close to the window as possible. It's a gorgeous view, gorgeous room. If money is no object when you go to Commander's Palace, then you want to sit at the chef's table in the dining room. It's a table that seats 4 people, and you get assigned one chef that cooks for you the entire night. We did this chef table experience back in, I think, 2016. It was a wonderful experience. Highly recommend it. It is expensive. I think we spent $250 per person. Either it was $250 per person or $250 total for just my wife and myself, and we went with some friends from back home. But it was a great experience. We have so many pictures, so many videos from it. It was a wonderful, wonderful process. All right. So that song just wrapped up. So, hey, thank you all so much for joining me on today's show. I hope you learned a little. I hope that this was somewhat engaging for you. And I'll see you on tomorrow. So tomorrow we will be covering Prince William County numbers from February 2023. So those will be interesting. And then we'll also cover 2 more questions, one buyer question, one seller question on that show as well. If you are in the market for real estate, right? If you're ready to start your real estate journey, there is a link in the description to the Perfect Home Questionnaire. Fill out that form, and we will schedule a time to meet online via Zoom to answer any and all of your questions. Whether you're buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate, click on that link. If you're on TikTok and you want to start the process, there is a link in our bio. Click on it to schedule time to talk with us. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all on the next show. Peace.